This was an evidence that he was in a state. The liquid that came out indicated that he was dead.
That's recorded in at least one of the Gospels, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
and they didn't break his legs. Crucifixion, you ultimately died of suffocation.
Yeah.
And they would break the legs because you had this tendency to want to lean up to try to catch your breath. They'd break the legs and lead people to suffocate more quickly. Well, when it came to Jesus, they didn't have to break his legs because they confirmed that he was dead. Mm-hmm. Now, these are Roman soldiers that I think we can conclude are probably pretty good at what they do. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they had a lot to lose if they were sloppy. Mm-hmm. They could suffer capital punishment.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Another criticism, could Jesus have survived after suffering severe torture, crucifixion, and 3 days in a cold tomb with no medical attention? I mean, Jesus was scourged. This was a use of a whip with sharp pieces of rock at the end of it to cut the skin to cause the person to bleed, so that this would be part of the process of death. They'd lose all of their strength, and they would hang on the cross and they would suffer. I mean, the Romans took this practice of crucifixion from the Phoenicians and they perfected it. They essentially took people who were threats to Rome and said, we're going to publicly crucify you and give you an excruciating death. I mean, that word comes from crucifixion.
Yeah.
So it seems very unlikely, very improbable.
There would have been a lot of blood loss, trauma.
Absolutely.
So how do you bounce back from that?
Does he move the stone out of the tomb? Mm-hmm. I mean, we could add one on top of that. Could Jesus have convinced his disciples that he had gloriously and triumphantly risen from the dead when his medical condition was at best critical? I mean, that just does not seem reasonable, plausible, and likely, given what we know about crucifixion. A couple other ideas that we can throw in, Joe. Does anything we know about the historic Jesus lead us to believe that he was a charlatan? Was he plotting to somehow convince his disciples that he was something that he's not? I mean, frankly, I've spent a good bit of my adult life reading about different figures in history. Joe, Jesus seems so unlike the rest of us. He faces every circumstance, whether it's trial or crucifixion, with courage, with honesty, with truthfulness. It doesn't fit his character to fall into that category. Thus, I conclude that even though it may seem initially likely that maybe he could have, just appeared to have died but not, that this hypothesis, it doesn't fit the facts. We have to bring things in that are not there. It doesn't seem plausible at all. My wife works at an emergency hospital. They bring people in that are critical. It's very difficult for them to get up and convince people, like Jesus would have had to, that he was the resurrected Lord, and it lacks explanatory power. And so we've seen thus far 4 of those theories, and they all seem very inadequate.
Yeah. And again, you're applying this principle of abductive reasoning, that which explains all the facts, takes into account all the data. It's fully orbed.
Yeah. It's got to be coherent. It's got to fit all of the data in it. The more simple it is, the better in that kind of context. And I don't think any of these theories thus far have fulfilled the requirement as a good hypothesis should.
Very intriguing, Ken, and you got a couple more you're going to talk about next time.
Next time, got 2 more.
Okay, looking forward to that. We hope you're enjoying this series. You can give us feedback by sending it to ask@reasons.org. That's the site that's been set up to answer questions on our other podcast called I Didn't Know That. But, of course, we can take a question or two on this podcast as well. So if you have some feedback or questions, send them to ask@reasons.org. Ken, how about our resource or two? You talk about this in your book, without a doubt, and probably have another resource or two to recommend.
I do. A very good book written some years ago but still available is called Risen Indeed, Making Sense of the Resurrection, written by a person that I know. He's a professor at Claremont Colleges, not too far from the RTP headquarters here over there in Claremont. This is a book that deals both with the textual, theological, and philosophical objections that are raised. That, how probable is this? The question of the miracle. This is a very powerful book, one, in fact, that a lot of atheists have felt the need to respond to. And so Steve Davis is a very thoughtful and reflective Christian thinker and philosopher.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. We'll also mention your book, Without a Doubt. You have a chapter in there as well, and you've also authored the book, A World of Difference. By the way, at least one of your books is being used as a text in several places, but I think recently we heard somebody in the UK has asked to use your book as a text.
I was very pleased to hear that a professor at one of the universities has asked to develop a new course about Christianity and why Christians believe it there in the United Kingdom, and he has requested that my book be one of the textbooks. So that's a very exciting idea. I mean, I became a Christian by reading C.S. Lewis's book, and I would always wonder, what would it be like to go to a university and bump into C.S. Lewis? I never thought somebody might want to use one of my books in the United Kingdom, so it's very exciting.
Wow. Okay, again, the books are Without a Doubt and A World of Difference by Kenneth Samples. Thank you, philosopher Kenneth Samples. Ken, we've been on an exciting series on the resurrection. I've been intrigued by these alternative explanations that naturalists offer. You have a couple more today.
We do, and as we think through these, I want our listeners to appreciate that something happened in the resurrection. So if certain explanations are inadequate, don't we have to gravitate somewhere and ask, what is the best explanation? And this is that process of abductive reasoning, an inference to the best explanation. And this is a standard way in which you would approach something that's controversial, something that has competing different ideas. This is how you would appropriately approach it from a very logical, rational point of view.
You will discuss the final two hypotheses in just a moment. Two more explanatory hypotheses. These four so far have been intriguing, yet leave much to be desired.
That's right. We looked at the myth and legend idea. We looked at the idea that the disciples came, stole the body, created a hoax. A third one was the women went to the wrong tomb. And then the last one was the swoon theory that advocated that Jesus may not have been dead. And we've seen that those have, I think, enormous problems with them. They do not give a consistent picture. But let's look at two more.
Okay.
Hypothesis number 5. Maybe the followers of Jesus could have simply hallucinated rather than actually seeing him after his death. I mean, people do experience hallucinations. Could the visionary elements of this be explained in terms of some type of private, subjective, psychiatric situation? Well, as plausible as that may seem initially, it's got some devastating criticisms. Jesus appears to various people at various times, in various places, if I can use the word various one more time, in various circumstances. That is, the hallucination hypothesis, Joe, simply can't reasonably account for all of this data. I mean, people have hallucinations who are very high-strung. Maybe they have been on drugs or have had very little food or water. But how would you explain that people inside and outside, friends and enemies, under all kinds of different circumstances, would the 500 brethren have had the same hallucination? Hallucinations are very private.